Alright guys, welcome back. I am sorry for earlier if I had to leave early, but that was a power cut. I kind of warned you guys, when it gets stormy here, we can get cut off without any warning at all. So apologies for that, but out of my control, I'm afraid. Now, what we're going to do tonight is we're going to try and pull off a miracle. We're going to try and rewrite foliage. Okay, so I have created another export and we're just about to test it. Right now I have taken this as basically as far as I can regarding the first part, but we're going to have to probably work on this, right? Because it's not going to work first time, right? This isn't a simple thing. This isn't just get all the actors and blah blah blah. It's just not going to work like that, I'm afraid. So we're going to have to work on this one, but work on it we shall. And if indeed we get this running, this will be a major coup. Now, and get transform. We can get a world transform. And we can plug that in there. Now, as I said, I am not expecting this to work off the bat. We are going to run the widget. We are going to drag it in here. Doesn't really matter if we drag it here or there, but we're going to hit mesh. Then we are going to go to C drive, SMs, and foliage. Well, that's interesting. Right, so we are basically pulling the foliage actor, and then we're getting the foliage instant static mesh component. Right, now these are all at the same point, so that's not good. So what we're going to do now is we're going to delete this back out again. Right, we're going to delete that, we're going to delete that, and we're going to delete that. Then we're going to go back and instead of getting child component, we're going to get child components. Okay. Then we're going to do a for each loop. That's going to go there. that is going to go there. And this is going to go here. And we're going to check again. We're going to see what we're going to get. Okay. Now we are beginning to get some interesting stuff. Right? So, let's have a look at this, what we're getting. We're getting a foliage actor instant static mesh 13. Right? And then we're getting this instant foliage actor. Okay, so this is the one we want to look at first, because actually no we don't. Or we do but we don't. What we want to do is we want to find out what this actually is. We want to also find out what the static mesh is. Right? So again, we're going to delete this. Now remember, getting this out is not the same as getting it back in, right? So, what we need to do now is we need to get the mesh. Right? And when we get the mesh, we want to get the path name for the loaded asset. Okay. Now the interesting thing here, right, we're going to hit mesh, we're going to check it again, going to open it, and we've still, oh wait a minute, and there we go, right, we have our mesh. Okay. We literally have our mesh and our now we don't need this last name, okay, because basically we're going to add it into our static mesh. Now in theory, right, we have these giving the same exact positions. Okay. Now, the question now is what indexes are these? Okay? Because I'm going to say that we are only getting 5, although maybe we aren't. Right? But our two problems are, number one, the position, right? So we've got scale is 111, that is 000, that is 0. Right, but remember this is the... So what we've got to do is we've got to get this to output the right position of not our mesh. Right? Which is going to be this thing here. Okay? So we're going to save that. We've deleted that. We're going to hit mesh. Now those are still the same. Okay. Now, just as a test here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that, and we're going to try one more little thing. And we're going to grab this, right? And then we're going to run it again. This is going to take quite a lot of trial and error, and we're still getting the exact same, right? Which is fine. Going to delete that. We're going to delete that. Right. Then what I'm actually going to do here is this. I'm going to get relative location, or let's say we'll get relative transform, right? Then we'll run this again, and you can see that our relative transforms are all 0, 0, 0. Right? So where do we conclude at the moment? Well, we've got the meshes, okay? We have got the meshes. So let's do one more thing. right, that's going to be straightforward and isn't going to be difficult. Right, so we'll delete this again. I don't think we need to keep deleting that, but anyway, what we'll do is for argument's sake, right, we'll comma that and we'll say index right, and then we'll get the index god darn it. Wait a minute. Right, we'll get the index from here. Then we'll do a reroute node. And then we'll punch that into there. We'll compile that. We'll hit mesh. We'll go back here. We'll open this. Okay. Now, the question is, this is bush 3, bush 3. So this is basically repeating. Right? And it appears to be, I'm guessing, that if this only goes at runtime, we might need, we can't even do that. We could. Maybe. Right. What I'm thinking here is that you'll notice we've got X number, right? So if I close this down, I go back to here, and then I basically put 100, right? And now I hit mesh, and now we go to foliage. We go, right. So basically we have 28. Okay? We have 28 different things that are in our foliage. Okay? $28 different items in the foliage, which is awesome. Right. That gives us an idea of what we need to do. Right? Because we can see that each of these different things are they should be the same. So winter tree B should be index 7. Winter tree B, that's right. And it's basically doing it once per foliage thing. Right? Now, what we're actually going to have to do here is something that I wasn't expecting we were going to have to do. And that is we are going to have to create a function out of this. Right, so we're going to have to say copy, right? Because I think this is only going to work at runtime. Okay? So what we're going to have to do now is open up our pawn. Right, and once we've opened up our pawn, we're going to have to set up a key to do this. Okay? And that key is going to be 8. Okay? And we're going to have to set up a variable. And it's going to be sr sms. And that is going to be a string. How long have we been working on what exactly? Well, we'll find out in a minute if the miracle is actually coming along. It is coming along, right? We're gradually building up what we need to do. Right, I believe. It's not. Right, okay, whatever. I should be able to compile that. Well, that's not good. That's not good. Okay. Well, we might have to do something slightly different here, right? So what we'll do is, in this case, we'll say display name. Right, and we might need to do something on the other side. Right? But we can run this. Okay. So what we're going to do as a test, right, is to load our test map and see what happens. In fact, no, we'll not. But we are going to save selected, right? Hi Screen Apple, how are you? Right, we need to load up the actual map. Now, I don't know if it makes any difference if we load it all up and then run it or not, but we'll check it out anyway. No worries, got abandoned. Don't worry about it. You can make it to your stream when you make it to your stream. It's simple as that. If you don't, I'm not going to hold it against you. Right, so let's have a look. Right, we've got our foliage and we want to delete it. Right. Now, I'm going to have a look at our pawn again, because we might actually not want to do or get relative transform. What we actually might, damn it, we want to maybe do that, and then do that. Right, I know guys, things are getting a bit messy, but we're dealing with quite a lot of loops here. Right, because basically we are reverse engineering the foliage. You know when you like add in the different foliage types, right? Well, it appears to me that we've got 28 different foliage types that have been painted onto the map, and that's represented by when we had our 28 different types of foliage, right? So that would appear to be correct. So what we're going to do now is we're going to run it. Right, why did this fail a... What the hell? Right, we're going to play an editor anyway. This might be actually what we would call a showstopper. Right. Okay, so we're running. Right, so you can see our foliage about. Right, now if we hit 8, let's make sure our keyboard and stuff is working. So we're going to hit 8, then we're going to hit tab, then we're going to go to here. We've got our foliage. But we have not got our correct thing. Right? So our transform is not working. Now we can actually just leave that running, right? Ah, no, we can't. Right, whatever. And go back to our pawn, and we can try our relative transform. Okay. Now the interesting thing is this get display name, right? Yes, some stuff on the internet always has issues with it, right? It's never always perfect. Right, so we'll try this again. Okay. Now. Yeah, that's what we're doing. Here's the interesting thing. Right? I think now, as I said, this is going to be a miracle if I got this to work, right? So bear that in mind. I've got a sneaking suspicion I'm going to put this into here, because I don't think we are actually referring to the foliage instance. I think what we're doing is we are referring to an instance static mesh component, right? And that instance static mesh component see, I thought that would have an index or instance number, right? Because what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to add these instances, right? But I need to get the index of the instance, right? So it's going to be like get instance transform. Right? And here's the instance index. Right? Now, as I said here, we shall delete this again. Now, this is the type of job to me, guys, that's interesting, right? This is an interesting problem to try and solve, because we're gradually trying to work out how the class or the actor is basically composed, right? And then from there, we're trying to drill down and find out if it's got instances, how many instances, how those instances are actually built up. because I think the instance has a certain number of, and I think this is like an HSIM, so it's hierarchical instance static mesh, right? So what I think we're going to have to do is basically build one, then reverse engineer it in script to see if we can get it to how to be able to grab all the instances and basically then reverse it back so we can write it again in the exact same way. Look at this. These are all different. Right? But the problem is, let's have a look at this. This is Bush Winter, right? And it's 35236. Right? Now let's look at the next one. '20, '21, '22, '26. Here it's here. Bush Winter 35 236 828 162 221. Right? So is that the same thing? It appears to be. Right? So whatever is going on there, we're getting scales, right? We're getting rotations. Now, so that says 123. That says 129. That says 129. These are different. That says 26. So these are all different, right? But for some reason, we've got instance foliage actor 0. Foliage instance static mesh 12. Right? Now we have the same thing here. So what I think is we have a foliage actor which has got a set of instance static meshes, hierarchical instance static meshes, and we have to loop round each of the HISMs, right? So we're going to try something else, right? This is going to be a bit weird, but bear with me, guys, right? We can work this out. Now, the interesting thing is we will need to add the foliage exactly the same order as it was in 4.27. Okay? That's going to be the challenge as well. But what I want to do here is I want to get not this. I want to see if we have any. I'm going to do this again, right? Except this time Ooh. Right, okay. So apparent. Oh, right, okay, whatever. Right. So this is getting the instance foliage, right? Now the crazy thing is basically why we are doing this. No, the errors are nothing to do with anything that I'm doing. We can basically ignore them. Right, okay. Oh, well, there's an interesting thing. So we can't get directly a component. We can only get an actor. Right? So interestingly, what we want to do is off the root component get child. Right? Right, so we're not going to do that, but we are going to do that. And we'll see where that takes us. Some of this is going to be trial and error, guys. Normally at this point, if I was working offline, I would basically do a search on the foliage actor to find out how it is constructed, right? But I hate doing that on stream. Right, so we've hit 8. We're going to check again, and we might actually take a look at this. Well, didn't do a damn thing. Right, didn't do a darn thing. Alright, we don't need to worry about that. Ah, okay. So that's nothing. So we need to just plonk that straight through. Right, so we'll basically just go with that. and that's kind of doing the same thing, so we could actually basically just do that. Right. Okay. No, code isn't working. Well, it's working, but it's not doing what it's supposed to do. There's that's two different things. Or it is doing what it's supposed to do, it's just not doing what we're expecting it to do. Or at least, we haven't solved the problem, put it that way. Right. So now we've got a more interesting issue here. Right, now these are all different. That's -2. That's the same. That's different. That's different. That's different. Right, these are completely different. Right, these are all different. So that's good. But the problem is we're only getting one. Right, now it seems to me that for this particular index we should be returning multiple. If this is a hierarchical thing, then there can be more than one instance of this particular static mesh, right? So the way to do this is to look at our hierarchical thing. Right, now I can't remember where I put it, and I was hoping it was going to be in a folder called HISM, and it might be in here. Right, I'm going to minimize this for now. Right, it's not in there. I'm pretty sure I didn't put it in there. Right, so where did I put it? Or did I delete it? That's the question. That would be rather unfortunate. Base blueprint. In there. It's not in there. It's not in there. Not in there. Or there. Or there probably. Is it in here? Yes, it is. It's in here. Right, we're going to stop that for now. And you'll notice right, we get a component called HI, hierarchical instance. Okay. Now the question is there a hierarchical instance is there a hierarchical instance in here? Okay. So what we can do is we can say get component by class, right? Then we can say hierarchical instance right. Then here you can see we can update instance, get instance transform, clear instances, etc., etc. And with that said, we can get the instance count, right? Then we can say -1, then we can basically do a for loop, right? And we can do 0 to that, and that should return us now. Here's the interesting thing. We're getting the instance, right? So instance transform, and here's the instance index, right? So in theory we should be able to get these in order, okay? As I said, this is going to be this is a complex task, right? So it's not going to work in 5 minutes, right? And one of the key objectives here is basically to create the output so that it's easy to input, okay? That is the objective here. So I'm going to go and grab a cigarette. So if you haven't already, hit the link, subscribe, check out the description for links to Discord, my personal Discord, Patreon, previous game, Kickstarter preview and website, and I shall be back very soon. So don't go anywhere guys, I'll be right back. Alright guys, we're back. So let's take a look at this. Right? Now, let's take a look at our foliage thing, right? And in here we've got foliage actor, right? Now, where is that coming from is the question. It's coming directly from here, which it shouldn't be, right? It should actually be coming from here, right? So let's do that. And press play. And check out what's going on. Right? We're getting closer, guys, we're getting closer. Going to have a biscuit. Or at least a bite of my biscuit. Interesting. Look at that. It's the same as that. Right? Now, the next thing I want to know is fairly simple actually. Right, if this is coming off of here, what I want to know, and therefore what I'm going to plug in, is basically that number there. Right, I want to know how many foliage instance actors there are. Right? Because the point is here that it could be that it creates a foliage actor and in effect an HISM for each of the different static meshes, right? So we might have 28 different foliage possibilities, right? But we might not have all of them used, right? Now, this would be a lot easier for me to solve if I was talking to my colleague at this point, and we were actually, well, I'll tell you what we could do in a minute. What I'll do is I'll run this first, because I want to know what the answer is to this. Right? To see what the biggest number is it gives me. Right? So what I'm thinking it might do here is create a foliage instance, which is actually an HISM for each of the different foliages used, right? So in effect, we run through each foliage actor instance and then get all the instances for that, right? And then we output them. Okay, so we hit 8 and we can just escape it. We can come to here, open this up, and it's going to say like index 1, index 1, index 1, index 1, right? And we've now got index 3, right? Index 3, index 4. Okay. So, right, what is, I'm not 100% sure what that's telling me at the moment. It's telling me there's 1. Right, but it shouldn't do that unless, okay, it should do that. That's actually fine because we're only going up to 4. Except we're not, right? We're going up to 100. Okay. I think I'm going to have a look at how this actually works. So let's open a new tab, drag it off, instanced foliage actor UE4. Go. Okay. So let's have a look at this and see this might be interesting, but we'll have a look here first. Add component is interesting. Right, we've got instance static mesh, hierarchical instance static mesh. Right? Right, I can only assume at this point, right, that basically, although it doesn't point to that, right? See where it's got this index 1, index 1. Where is index 0? Right? Where is it? And it goes from 1 alright. This then it goes straight to index 3. There's no index 2. Right? And then it goes from 3 to 4, and there's only 2 instances of a mesh. And interestingly, those have got the exact same thing. So that says to me that something ain't right. Well, basically, obviously, it ain't right. Right, but if we look at these, this is index 1, right? And those are different. Those are the same. Right? We've got a different one, a different one, a slightly different one. Let's have a look at these two again. We've got those two which are exactly the same. One being grass, one being tree. So I suppose that actually could be correct. Okay, but the actual grass is inside the tree, so you can't actually see it, right? We've got that is different. Those are exactly the same, and that's two pebbles. That might be similar. I'm not going to jump on that one either. These are different, that's different, that's different, and different again. These two are the same, but it's a grass again and a tree, so that's grass inside a tree, so that's okay in theory. We've got these two, right? One's a sapling, we've got grass again, so okay. Right? Those are different, that's different. That one's different, obviously. These two, we've got mushroom grass, so that is a plausible deniability again, because we've got a grass inside a tree, right? These are different. That's different. We've got a tree again. We've got two trees. We appear to have two trees inside each other, which again isn't impossible, but it's not as obvious as the two grasses, right? We've got another tree here. Now, this is a really interesting one, really is. Those are different. That's the same. But we've got two pebbles again together, but those are different, right? You can see a different value there, so that doesn't count. That's different. We've got grass again, two grasses. Those are exactly the same, but if you were to paint two grasses on top of each other, that would actually be okay. Right, so I'm not convinced on that that is actually an issue, right? But this isn't really telling us. Right, referencing instance foliage actor. Right, this might be interesting. Right, what does it say? I'm taking the foliage that I have painted on using get all actors class and returns an array with one item, but I have painted 4 instances in the level of the same instance number. Right, okay. That's an instance static mesh, right? Okay. So what it's saying is there can only be one instance foliage, right? But not necessarily if you've got it across multiple maps, right? But that's something to worry about later, kind of thing. Okay, so let's implement that thought process into ours, right? So what we'll do is we'll move this up out the way. And we'll say get actor of class, right? And we'll say instanced foliage actor. We shall plug that in there. We shall plug that into there. Right? Then we basically get component by class, and that's going to be instance static mesh. Then we're going to get the length, and that's going to be -1. Right? So in the meantime, what we're going to do is we're going to absolutely kill that, right? And let's have a look at that other code just to make sure that we're getting this right. Right, we're doing a get on that. Right, but that's the instance count. So that's kind of not right. Right. Right, okay. Okay. This will do the same thing. Actually. No, it won't. So we'll do that. We'll take that away again. Should have left in that other thing. Right? We'll undo that. We did want to get that. And what they're saying is get copy of 0, right? And let's have a look at that again. How did they... Yeah, they're saying get instance count from that. They're saying get instance count, and that's going to be -1. Right, and then you're going to do a for loop on it. And that's going to be the last one. Right, and then you're going to do a get transform. Right, so that's going to go to there, and that's going to go to there. Right, how's it going? It's tough going because this is not a simple thing to do. Not a simple thing to do at all. Right, so we're plugging that in there. Right, then that can't go in there. Then we're going to delete that. We'll move this up out the way. We'll delete that out of there. I'm just tidying it up at the moment so that it'll actually do something. Right, but the problem is that this is an instance static mesh. Right, so that should go in there, and there. That doesn't matter about going in there actually, but anyway. Right, so if we press play now, as I said, this is your ET stuff. Cat eats chips. This is definite ET stuff. If I get this working, I don't think I'm going to get it working on the stream, but at least we'll be, well, we'll have made quite a bit of progress, put it that way. A bit of progress on whether or not it's going to work. Right. Alright, we've got that grass and stuff, but this is looking okay. Right, and this is index 1. Right, you can see that, how many have we got here? We've got index 4. Right, so that's interesting. It's printing out this index. Right, so we've got index 4, index 3, we've got no index 2 and no index 0. Right, so that is absolutely bizarre. Right, that is completely and absolutely bizarre. Whew. So let's have a look at this. If we look at here, right, and we look at what we're actually picking up here, it isn't even plugged in. This is it here. So where's that number coming from? Right, because I can only assume that it's coming from over here. Compile that. Right, press play. Now I wouldn't be in the slightest bit surprised if it printed out exactly the same thing. In fact, I'd probably be surprised if it did, or more surprised if it didn't. Alright, press A, escape, back to here, in here, index 1, index 3. So it's printed out exactly the same thing, which is exactly what I expected. Right, I'll tell you what we'll do, just to make sure that we're not screwing ourselves. I'll do that, close that down, dismiss all these, right, and then we'll run it again. I think what it is there's one key point that I'm missing here, right, and that one key point basically ties it all together, right? And once I understand what that one key point is, I'm going to be there. I'm going to have solved the issue. Right, now I'm going to close all them down so that there's no... Right, so this wasn't working at all, and that's the problem. It was writing the same thing all the time because it was writing the same thing all the time. Right, so that explains a lot. Right. Going to do that. So we get an actor of class, right? And I'm guessing that the casting is failing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go straight into there, right? So this is not running, it's only doing it from here. Yeah, that's blueprints, yeah. Compile that, close that, run that. Right, now are we going to get output this time? To be quite honest, I don't know. If we are, we're not. Right, so it failed. Right, whatever it was, it failed. Okay. So, never mind. You've sometimes got to go backwards to go forwards, okay? I'm not particularly confused yet. We'll delete all that stuff out. Right? Now, what this means is that I'm guessing that our instance count is nothing. Right? So, we're going to run this again. Alright. Press A. And we're getting nothing. Absolutely nothing. Okay? So, what we're going to do is we're going to say get component by class. Right? Now, wait a minute. Just let's have a look somewhere here. Does this do instance static mesh? Instance foliage? Right, okay. So, I tell you what, we'll minimize that, we'll delete that, right? We'll do for each, okay? We'll plug this in here, right? We'll plug that in there. then we'll plug that in there. Then we shall plug that in there and see what we get. Well, you couldn't possibly do that, Screen Apple, because we don't know what the DNA recipe is for how you look, right? We know what some of the DNA things are and what they relate to, but we don't know what the code means, right? So to do your thing and fake it, you could do it, right? What you're talking about, you could fake it, right? And even then, it would be quite hard to do. I mean, what you got to remember is, your, like, for example, your heart and bones, everybody's are the same apart from like human males and human females, right? So you've only got like basically two sets of bones. Now, I don't know enough about it, but I would probably think that bones are pretty much identical in the way they're formed, right? It's only basically scale, the scale of each of your bones that matters, right? But as I said again, DNA, we don't know how to read the DNA in that particular manner. And if it even works like that, because it might not work like that. I'm not a biologist and I'm not a expert, but does the DNA actually decide how big your bones are? Or once a bone is formed, is it the DNA that tells it to grow, and there can be like a level of accuracy that determines how big your bones are and how big you are? So your DNA is probably, it doesn't say 5'10", right? Probably what it would say is, here's how much growth hormone to pass to all these bones. So it'll be more like, let's say it was a character builder in an RPG. It would probably be a range, right? That here is the smallest it could be with this DNA chain, and here's the biggest it could be with this DNA chain, right? And where you land up as your height is not determined solely by the DNA, right? It's probably just giving you a range of what you could be based on the DNA. But obviously there has to be different, like for example, there's other factors, right? Because, and it's obvious, because the biggest people in the world are all in, well, on average, is in the Netherlands, Holland, right? Now, they've not got any kind of different DNA from everybody else. You know, everybody's got the same set of DNA. It's the coding inside the DNA. So it's obvious that the location, diet, blah, 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 weather, whatever, is also a factor in, for example, your height. So, as I said, your DNA probably only takes care of, let's say, 90% of the possibilities, whereas outside influence will take care of another 10%. So if you were to do that program and you were to base it on DNA alone, it wouldn't be accurate. It would depend on where you lived, your parents' income, because obviously if your parents' income's high, you eat a better quality of food, you might grow more because of that. You probably do. There's probably studies been done on it and it's already been proven. So therefore, it's not just your DNA that decides how high you are, you know, how long your fingers are, what size your nose is, what size your chin is. You know, it's like you can look at other things, like, for example, how much of your DNA is your mother and how much of DNA is your father, right? Like, for example, for me, all of my mum's side of the family, the men, are basically bald, right? Whereas my dad has a full head of hair, right? But I'm bald. So there's another aspect of it. So it's a lot more complicated than just saying, oh, it's your DNA that decides, you know, what you're going to be. Because obviously I've got my mum and dad's DNA, but that doesn't mean I've got a full head of hair, and it doesn't mean I'm bald. But in my case, I'm bald, so, you know, I must take more of my mum's side, so there must be a multiplier as well on that one, on how it's encoded, right? So there you go. That's my thoughts on it. Quick thoughts. As I said, no idea what I'm talking about, but that's my quick thoughts on it. Hopefully you might found that interesting. Right, so we have still not got this. And I know why. It's because I'm a bloody idiot, right? I didn't join up the complete again. So you'll notice it's not right in the file. Right? So I am a complete and utter numpty. That was a good question though. It's something to deliberate on, right? And I'm sure if you asked somebody else, they would come up with the same thing. They would have another, not objection, but they would have another sort of angle on it from another aspect that would further muddy the waters. But yeah, interesting question. Something to ponder. So the next time you play Spore, right, you know it's rubbish because there's outside influences on it that they probably don't take into effect if you're just basing it entirely on DNA, right? Because we know that can't be true. Because if it was, the world over would be kind of average in size, and there would be no country that would be averagely bigger than everybody else and averagely smaller. Right, we'll hit 8 this time. And thank God we have some foliage this time, but it's empty. Right, but that's okay. And I'm going to leave it there, guys, with a completely empty foliage folder, because I know how to get something back up, and that's what I'm going to do. But hopefully you found that interesting. We'd got stuff working, then we took it away, and that's what happens sometimes, right? You're not always successful. I told you it would be a miracle. It'd be even more a miracle if I did it in one night in under 2 hours, I can tell you that. That would have been awfully lucky. But we shall carry on with it, and I'll be back tomorrow, 2 PM, as normal. If you haven't already, hit like and subscribe. Check out the description for the game's Discord, my personal Discord, Patreon, my previous game on Steam, Kickstarter, preview and website. And thank you very much for watching, guys. Hope to see you tomorrow. Bye bye for now.